Hello and welcome back to Rage Gaming. My name is Hollow and today we're discussing the recent balance patch 1.03, something we were holding our breath for after the many irritating nerfs back to back. But finally the buff patch has landed and now we've had some time to experience it and adjust. How are we feeling about it? What was great about the patch? What was strange? What was entirely missing? Basically, was the patch a success? Let's get into it. Let's open the video with some positivity. We'll talk about the best things about the patch, things that were just undeniably good. Firstly, I think what we'll all be thinking of is the Nightmare Dungeon XP buffs, which are shockingly good, like way more of a bump than we really could have hoped for. Now, it's easily arguably the best way to level, which provides a lot of variety in your gameplay. Of course, that's the whole concept of the Nightmare Dungeons, isn't it? Ultimately, it pushes you towards a variety of dungeons, so instead of just farming the same source over and over and over, we actually have that variety, which is really nice. Because of that, we're also actually getting our Glyph XP instead of choosing to level quickly or get Glyph XP, and getting the optimal items because Sacred and Ancestrals do drop really well in there, as we know. Of course, there is the fact that, you know, something like Champion's Demise in the Nightmare Dungeon version with a full party clearing each lane, that's still going to be like the optimal thing you can do. So you'd like hoard those and make sure you farm those out as much as you can. But it's not like something you can do all the time because you might just not have a Champion's Demise, and that's good. And it feels like when you do actually find a Champion's Demise sigil, it's quite exciting because it means very good XP for that run. Further, in terms of XP improvements, there were other sort of open world improvements as well. Take the Whispers, not necessarily the hand-in, but you know, the actual objectives in the open world. They seem to be rewarding a lot more XP, which is really nice. And say the Hell Tides, those are feeling a little bit better in terms of XP. The Legion events were always good, although compared to the current Nightmare Dungeon XP farming, maybe not as competitive as it once was, but still worth doing for the great loot and is good open world XP all the same. This is great because, you know, as you finish the story, you're around level 50, you're working your way to 60 in that section of Nightmare to Torment mode as you're unlocking that. Players leveling in that section are going to really feel these open world changes, making those things also much more worth doing than going to a specific dungeon and farming it. So certainly a good step in the right direction. And on top of that, the actual teleport to the Nightmare Dungeons, I never really thought or expected that one, but now that I've been playing with it, I genuinely don't think I could live without it. The amount of time that I've been wasting teleporting to a waypoint to run to the dungeon, and then leave that dungeon to teleport to a new waypoint to run to the dungeon, and some of them are so bad that I just would ignore that Nightmare Dungeon, either with like the perfect affixes, because I don't want to run all the way to that damn dungeon. The perfect example of that is that Ravine dungeon that's like towards the center of the map. You have this long run where you get demounted, have to go up and down walls. It takes like half a minute to get there at least, and now we can just teleport there, so it's so much better. And then in regards to the buffing of all classes, there are a variety of improvements to focus on bringing up the power and relevance of underused skills. Now, admittedly, the results are very varied in that most buffs, in my opinion, weren't enough, but it is a clear attempt to address the issue. For example, with the Necromancer blood builds, they might not be meta, but they're certainly a lot better, and I've been enjoying testing and playing with those. I'm sure I could say the same for many classes, and you know, these changes are actually going to help the earlier game quite a lot. You know, improving those basics gives you some variety of options as you're going to actually be leveling, say in Season 1 when we all reset in that way. We might actually feel these minor changes a lot more in that context, or like totally new players to Diablo 4 are feeling them now. So it is undeniably a good thing. There was also like minor quality of life improvements, such as the fact they took away the level 80 requirement for the tier 4 World Boss Legendary cache, which was kind of random, annoying, considering the rewards from that cache was basically usually one legendary that you probably end up dismantling, so very disappointing. So it certainly didn't need a level 80 requirement on it. They also did like a little hidden change to the corpse explosion visual for the blighted corpse explosion. It no longer completely blackens the ground underneath it, so you can't see anything within it. So yeah, very nice to see that too. All right, positive stuff aside, let's talk strange. For example, the teleport to Nightmare Dungeons, amazing, but it teleports you outside instead of inside. This means you get the fun concept of, all right, activate my sigil. Cool, there's the dungeon, let's teleport to it. Loading screen. All right, here I am. Now I've got to enter, all right, loading screen, which I presume if you're playing on console, the loading time is certainly a lot more noticeable. Why is it that they're not just letting us teleport inside the dungeon immediately, like directly? You could argue that it's because when you enter a dungeon, sometimes enemies might just immediately attack you, so maybe you like teleport to the dungeon, go AFK for a second, or look away while you're teleporting and loading, and then you get killed. Well, there's an easy fix for that too, isn't there? Because you know when you die and then you respawn and don't move, you have this sort of ghost state where you're alive, but you're completely immune to damage. They could just provide that to you on entry until you move, preventing any issues with that. The other strange, lacking detail of this patch was any noticeable or talked about buff to the rarest universal uniques. There's like 6 super rare unique items that you can argue aren't even best in slot for everyone in all builds and all classes, but yet they are very good for most. And it is pretty cool to have a very rare item that, you know, we want for a long-term hope that the chances are low you'll ever see. It's just a bit strange though that there's almost none in existence still after a month of gameplay. And you know, with season 1 coming up, it will largely have us reset. These items don't even really exist, do they? I like the idea again of creating something so rare that it's an event that people talk about when it drops. But at the same time, the chances of me ever seeing any of them is probably not going to happen, which is weird. What do you guys think about that? Should they make them ever so slightly less rare or keep them ultra rare like this? But now, let's talk about the big one, the bad, the lacking things about the patch. Starting simple, with things that really could be added into the game via like a hotfix, because there's not massive technological concepts, should be pretty easy to add. And you know what I'm about to say, so let's just get it out of the way. The stash. There is no space improvements in this patch. Really, I think that's inexcusable. I now have completely capped out on all my 10 character slots on this realm because 8 of them are bank characters. That means I can't make a Sorcerer or Barbarian or Druid because I don't have space for them. Truly, there is no good reason at this point that they have not doubled, tripled, quadrupled, 10x the size of the stash. They could literally just make the change and hotfix it in, just like they hotfixed, nerfed all of the dungeon farming methods super quickly. It would be a life-changing event and much appreciated. Yes, obviously with the stash, we want mega improvements like being able to search in a search bar for a specific aspect and compare them, more organization options, a filter, all this good stuff that you would expect in the game currently, but it just isn't there. But at very least, I think we can all agree that nothing is stopping them from just adding slots to the stash. And they could do that in a hotfix without any like major fanfare. In the same way that gems shouldn't take up any inventory room and should go into the same non-existent inventory pool that say your murmuring obols go into, and so on. Next, I saw this great post by Jesseroth on Reddit, which just highlights the incredible lack of the feature to zoom in and out with your minimap. You know, instead of having to open your map every time you need to check a dungeon path. Yeah, I mean, just being able to press like plus and minus to zoom that in and out, or like a button next to the minimap, like, I don't know, any MMO or most games in existence just has you with the ability to do. It's a funny concept that this just isn't in the game right now. And again, another one I think they could just add without any fanfare. Okay, next, this one could be hotfixed in instantly and also is a bit more complicated than that. It's the build swapping. So what I think they should be able to do without any fanfare and hotfixing immediately, no excuses, is make it so refunding your skill tree costs half or way less than it costs right now. Personally, when I press refund, it costs me 1.8 million gold every time I do it. Now, I make multiple build videos per week, and I've made 4 back-to-back for the new patch. I've spent like 60 million gold in 2 days. I'm reaching the point now where I just don't have gold to actually make videos and content, and it's a massive problem. So I'm having to invest a lot of time to just find sacreds and ancestrals and vendor them, and this is just so dumb. That aside, why can we not refund the entire Paragon boards in one button just like the skill tree? Or better, can I choose to refund the last board to the last board gate? Why do I have to manually right-click each and every single node in the correct order every time I want to change my build slightly? This is ridiculous. Those things I think could be implemented instantly. However, there is a more complex side of this. Why is it we cannot save or change loadouts for our gear? Diablo 4 has many great aspects to builds and gameplay variety and the fun of playing one class and trying lots of different ways to play it. It's expensive, it takes a while to do, it's just awkward. There's a very popular post right now on the D4 Reddit, pretty much at the top. The commenter is just venting about how this is indeed a game about builds and you can't save builds and swap between them easily. Truly, if I have every item and I've had a Paragon board already invested in and skill tree already invested in, can I not just swap to that, save the loadout and swap between them? So yeah, it sucks that it wasn't included in this patch, but Season 1 copium. On another note, in terms of things being a bit too expensive, there's been a lot of complaints recently about itemization being too expensive because of obviously the insane cost of modifying your one item to get the one stat that you want. Personally, I'm relatively okay with that system. It gives us a way to long-term perfect a build, and I think that should be hard and a reason to encourage us to keep looking for gear. You know, for most people, it doesn't matter if you got 4 out of 4 perfect stats on every piece. For me, it does, and it encourages me to keep playing, especially at level 100, you know, when I don't need to level anymore. The counter to that is obviously with the lack of loadouts and weird intense punishment for changing builds at any point, in combination with the mega expensive itemization, it's brutal for making builds. So maybe if they resolved that, the itemization being expensive wouldn't be as bad, but yeah, I don't know, what do you think? But that brings us to the end. I think this patch was an important, appreciated first step in the right direction. And I think we should encourage this step and push them to keep going that way. Add more brilliant quality of life features to make the day-to-day smoother. Target the major complaints such as the stash, the expensive build swapping, make that process smoother, and yeah, keep buffing the underused skills and so on. This patch was a step we needed, but the problem is there's still many more steps we also very clearly need, and all we can do is talk about it and pray that they actually add it in a coming patch, if not Season 1. Let me know your thoughts on all of this though. I know it's a big discussion and there's a lot of topics here. For now, I've been Hollow, you've been you, thank you for watching, we'll see you next time.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.